In today's episode, we go racing in the rain.
Oh.
I struggle to send a drop.
Arr.
We tackle Bloodrock. My shoelaces become untied. And we ride some awesome trails. Hey guys, welcome back. We are in Oak Mountain in Birmingham, Alabama for the not so fast Enduro. And it's a bit of a cloudy day, it's just drizzling a little bit, but it should be good. You've already seen Enduro races before, so you kind of know how it works. You pedal up, untimed. When we get to the top, stages are timed on the way down. So I will be getting each one of those as we go through. Let's go race. After our first pedal to the top, we had made it to the start of stage 1. Stage 1 always has the longest wait, since the field hasn't spread out yet. We've been waiting in line at the top of stage 1 for like maybe 45 minutes at this point. No rain at all. We are literally just about to start. This sucks. It's gonna be a little challenging. It's ironically fitting that the last weekend riding the Jeffsy would be a wet ride in Oak Mountain. Back in 2017 when I got this bike, I wanted to film a first impressions video of it, so I drove up to Oak Mountain only to be rained out. Somehow, it feels we've come full circle to conquer Oak Mountain in the rain.
Okay, here we go. So I'm gonna be really honest. I am not feeling very confident right now. The weather had been pretty nice and dry, and it rained a ton just before the start, so not feeling that great, but we shall do what we can.
So as you can see, the race day footage is mostly water on the lens because the ground was so saturated from the rain. Watching it by itself is not that great, so in order to show you the race day experience, I'm going to be switching between race day footage and, as you're seeing from this point on, pre-ride footage. 2 days before the race, we rode stages 1 through 3 to get an idea of what to expect for race day. While it had drizzled a tiny bit, the conditions were actually phenomenal. It was grippy and confidence inspiring. Having practiced in those conditions, it was hard to feel confident on race day, which had these conditions. It was super drenched. In this section, the difference isn't all that visible, but it's definitely audible. Listen for the interaction between tire and water. This made it really challenging to keep speed up as everything was very sloppy, so that caused the race runs to be much slower than pre-rides.
The rock feature right here, which yesterday when I pre-rode I did. Today, I think I'm going around it. Despite the fact that so far the grip has actually been pretty good, but the rocks just get to my head.
During our pre-ride of stage 1, we found only one technically challenging feature, a steep rock roll after a rock garden. It was definitely better to do it as it saved a lot of time versus a bypass, but it was a little sketch.
Oh, wow. I mean, I think...
As we were planning how to do it, Angel did the smart thing and just sent it, so we all went for it. While we had done it in the pre-run, I was a little concerned with how it would be when soaked during the race.
Straight over this, and I'm actually going to do it. Oh yeah. Whew. Glad I didn't skip it. Totally doable.
So, back to pre-ride day. The next section was the fastest in the stage. It also happened to be the one where rocks mattered the most. They weren't particularly large or loose, but they all had odd angles to the trail, so going over them at the wrong angle would definitely change your trajectory. In the dry, it wasn't overly challenging to go fast here, so I knew it was important to keep my speed up as the locals would without a doubt go much faster. Surprisingly, during the race, I was feeling quite well at this point. My confidence had returned and I was able to make good time in this section.
Ryder. Yeah, man. Whew. Do you mind if I cut through? Thank you.
I ended up passing one rider, which is always a great boost. The last section, which I found could be tricky during the pre-ride, was some long sweeping turns which required some pedaling between them if you didn't keep your speed up mid-turn. I ended up having my only slip during the race on this section. Thankfully, I didn't slide out completely, but to make it worse, I did slide out about 4 feet before the transponder and I didn't notice it. So instead of just pushing my bike across, I got back on it awkwardly to cross the finish struggling.
So much mud.
You can definitely hear all the dirt and grime in the drivetrain. The time spread on this stage was pretty huge, ranging from 5:43.2 to 9:43.9. I assume that's mostly because roughly the first 15 riders had a completely dry trail, which made their runs much more manageable. But hey, that's enduro racing, nature is a variable. Anyhow, I clocked in a solid mid-pack result, which I'm pretty happy about. I'm also comparing times with Ricardo's, as we ended up having a very close race. If you watch my channel regularly, you've seen him often on the SB130. Stage 2 starts with a small wooden drop. During the pre-ride, we weren't sure if it was better to roll it or to drop it.
It's better to drop it.
After doing it once, the roll was so steep it was pretty obvious dropping it was the way to go if you didn't want to lose too much speed. In general, this stage was fast and burmy, with a few very well built jumps throughout. Unfortunately, it also seemed very clayish, which would be quite sloppy when wet. So, as I said, during race day, I already knew that the best approach was to drop this feature, so I just skipped the whole thing because wet wood is terrifying.
Oh, this is slippery. It's kind of clayish, so damn. Whoa. I can't tell you what my front end is doing right now. Wow. Oh. Brutal conditions. Still fun, but brutal conditions. The only seriously sketchy thing in regular conditions is a big drop. Depending on how far you send it, it's between 4 to 6 feet, I would say. And it took me a really long time to get it during the pre-ride. So I kept on rolling up on it and I was kind of scared. Once I did it, no problem at all. But the access to it is on a turn, so I may just go around it. So I don't know if I can get enough speed turning out of it.
The drop had been a huge mental block for me during the pre-ride. I thought I could spot it once and then go, as it wasn't larger than the drops I've done before. But for some reason, I kept rolling up to it.
There's definitely enough speed. Like, this is fast enough. Oh, you know what's sketchy?
Again.
The angle you're coming in.
And again.
Okay.
And again.
Now I got it. I know I can do it.
Until I was finally able to commit.
Yeah! Success. That felt great.
I ended up hitting it 3 times in a row just to make sure I had properly gotten it through my head. Of course, I wasn't expecting race day to have soup for soil. Thankfully, racing gets some adrenaline going and I didn't doubt myself and just went, which could have admittedly gone one of 2 ways, but in this case, it played out well. The rest of the stage was sloppy but uneventful, and I finished it without any mishaps.
Well, I felt super slow, but it was still fun.
This stage had tighter times as almost everyone got the same conditions. I got a 13th on this stage, but the time difference was not enough to move me in the class standings, so I stayed at 14. In this one, I was 12.2 seconds faster than Ricardo to make the cumulative difference 31.9 seconds. By the time we finished climbing up to stage 3, the weather had improved and the dirt had absorbed some of the water. It still wasn't dry, but it was definitely better. This was the only stage which combined a few trails.
Like an XC start here.
Starting out on a rather flat and very pedally one, then dropping into Bloodrock, which was quite a challenge, and later a chunky fast rocky section. Technically, this was the most demanding stage.
Oh man, this is a lot of pedaling. Okay, finally. This is where it starts to go down. Challenging rock garden here, right at the top. I don't know if I'm gonna do it or not, but I'll try.
While the dirt was mostly dry, the rocks were definitely not. During the pre-ride, I lost my line as it was my first time riding this trail, and I felt lazy to push back up to do it again.
Oh crap. Send it, it's fine. There's nothing to it. It's good, it's good.
I really thought I had just visually gotten it, but I learned that at least for me, it's always worth going back and cleaning the line at least once. Having not done this, during race day, I lost my line again through the rocks. It wasn't too bad as I was able to avoid dabbing, but it was definitely slow.
Shit. Nice, thank you.
After Bloodrock, the trail got a bit easier. being mostly smooth single track with some rocks sprinkled in.
Oh, sketchy.
This section was pretty close to the road, so some spectators lined it to watch, ringing bells and cheering riders on.
Woo, thank you guys.
I have to say, it was very cool. I really felt a huge boost of motivation at that moment. Racing a big race with all the loudness of the fans must be unbelievable.
Almost there. Almost there. This isn't the end of it. Oh, that's muddy. Muddy, muddy, muddy. There's so much time to make up on these pedally sections.
Except this time, it wouldn't go so smoothly for me. My shoelace started to wrap around the pedal spindle, locking me in from pedaling.
My shoe just became untied.
Have you ever seen anyone take longer to tuck their shoelaces in? By trying to do it quickly, I was super sloppy and I ended up making it worse.
It was tangling with my cranks. Okay, there we go. Whew. That's too bad. It's a good, like, maybe 15 seconds there that I lost.
Exhaustion aside, the rest of this very long stage went okay. With times ranging from 7.5 to 11 minutes, you can tell that there were a lot of factors to consider on this one. The pedaling, the fast sections, the rock gardens really spread the times out. I finished with a time just 1 second faster than the average, which put me in 16th place for the stage and lost me 1 position in the class standings. Ricardo got an 8:45, 17.4 seconds faster than I was, bringing the cumulative difference to 14 seconds in my favor. After one last pedal to the top, it was time for the last stage, Red Road. I have to admit, I wasn't particularly fond of this stage. I hate fire roads. I think they're boring and treacherous. And honestly, I think it may be because I've just never been able to figure them out. While it's not very visible in the video, a big rock had knocked me off my left pedal. So I was all out of place right from the start of the stage. The whole stage was mostly pedaling hard and crossing rock-armored drainage dips where the river crossed the road. For the first few of these, I tapped my brakes, and I later noticed that it wasn't necessary. We didn't ride this during the pre-ride, so I really had no idea.
God, I hate fire roads.
Aside from that, there were a few rocky stretches and some areas where the organizers had funneled the trail to avoid going into rain ruts.
Nice.
And so, the last stage came to an end. A relatively short one with a 5-minute average. As noticed with my discomfort with fire roads, it was actually the only stage where I was slower than the average, bringing in a 5-minute and 17-second run. Ricardo got a 4:51, 17.4 seconds faster than I was. After 25 minutes of racing, Ricardo and I finished just 11.3 seconds apart. That's just an 0.05% time difference. It's really cool how in these varied enduros, you get to see how everyone has different kinds of trails where they're more comfortable at. You can be faster here and your buddy over there. After stage 2, I was 31.9 seconds ahead, but in stage 3 and largely on stage 4, he earned all of those back and managed to pass me. And to me, that's what makes enduros so fun. They're super relaxed, and I'm not here to try to win this race, just to have fun riding with the buddies and to push a bit. Well, there we go. That was a really fun enduro. A ton of fun, kind of dirty. It's a little covered in mud and dirt. The bikes ended up being super dirty, which I personally love when they look like that. They look raced. Plus, Oak Mountain has great facilities there, so you can just wash everything before you go home. It ended up being a phenomenal day and the fitting end to the Jeffsy goodbye weekend. Our battery is kind of dead. I'll just try a couple times.
Yeah, last time it worked.
Cleaned the bikes already, but we're now going to back up and 12-hour drive to Florida. So, well, anyhow, I hope you have fun with me. I will see you for the next one, and happy riding.